Yo, what's going on, guys, and welcome to the video on Genshin Impact. My name is Ventus. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to be the best DPS that you can be with the new 5-star character, Albedo. I've been using him as a main DPS for the last few days since his banner drop, putting in hours and hours of practice and learning before I made this video because I 100% did not want to give you the same video that every YouTuber on the platform has made that tells you just to use 2-piece Archaic Petra and 2-piece Noblesse and call it a day. Sure, that works, but I wanted to see what really worked and give you some options as far as artifacts and weapons go. So, primarily in this video, I'm going to be using only 3 swords. The Festering Desire, the Black Sword, and the Flute. Mostly because these are the only swords that I can get to level 80 by now, and because these seem like the swords that work best for Albedo. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my main build for Albedo and show you some tests, and throughout the course of this video, it's also going to be a side lesson in Bennett. So if you got him too and are not sure what to do with him, you're in luck because Bennett is a large part of this, and I use him on pretty much every team I run because of his abilities. So first up are the weapon and artifacts damage tests, including consumable enhancements as well, then using Albedo in solo domains, and then how to use him in co-op multiplayer, both to be a top DPS and how to assist other players so they can be even stronger. And then finally, I'll take Albedo around Dragonspawn with the Festering Desire and show you how he's best played there as a part of your team to do the most damage to end fights quickly and spectacularly. Alright, so in this first test, Albedo is running the standard 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece Archaic Petra, and a fantastic Geo Cup that I found on accident. Archaic Petra, if you didn't know, is a Geo damage set, and having 2 pieces on a character increases their Geo damage. Having 4 pieces of the Archaic Petra grants enhanced damage to teammates when they obtain shards created through Crystallize, but only for that particular element. It's a 35% boost in damage, and it only lasts 10 seconds. I do not test that ability in this video. Noblesse 2-piece set grants plus 20% elemental burst damage, and the 4-piece set increases all party members' attack for 12 seconds after using an elemental burst. Remember this for later. And real quick, if you don't have Noblesse gear, make this a top priority. In this test, I've got Albedo using the Festering Desire. It's at level 81 with a base attack of 478, energy recharge at 21.9%. Its ability called Undying Admiration increases elemental skill damage by 24% and elemental skill crit rate by 9%. Having this particular equipment on Albedo gives him an attack of 1200 and a defense score of 1460. Defense is very important for Albedo because if you watched my last video or if you use him, you know that his Solar Isotoma elemental skill scales off of his defense. On certain pieces of his gear, I prioritize defense, meaning that whenever I search for the right gear for him, I tried to make sure that I leveled up as many pieces as I could that had stats in defense. His Noblesse flower has a top stat of defense with attack, an excellent flower for Albedo. This Archaic Petra Feather is not the best, but it has energy recharge, which is a solid stat for Albedo. The Noblesse Royal Watch is adequate with stats for defense, mastery, and recharge. This is the Geo Damage Cup I told you about, and it's literally perfect. It has a main stat of Geo Damage, 1 stat for recharge, and 2 stats for defense. This cup was literally made for Albedo. And finally, his Archaic Petrocirclet. Not amazing for Albedo, but the stats and crit rate and damage help as well as that energy recharge. And just as an FYI, I only have 1 constellation of Albedo, which is something that helps with energy recharge, and I have his talents as high as I can make them for now with his Elemental Burst, Tectonic Tide, the highest at level 7. If you've not seen my first video on Albedo, I encourage you to check it out now or after this video because this video is a direct follow-up to that video and I won't be repeating some of the same information that I gave you there about Albedo and his abilities and what they are and how they work. Okay, so my test dummy for this portion of the video will be a Ruin Guard, and this is just to show you the difference in damage numbers, not to show off big damage. That part comes later. Using Bennett and his Elemental Burst, Fantastic Voyage, which gives a boost to party members' attack, allows Albedo in this gear set pretty decent damage, allowing his Solar Isotoma to hit for 2,700, around 3k damage, let's call it, and his Elemental Burst, Tectonic Tide, to hit at 14k, with a few of those Fatal Blossoms connecting for 1 to 3k as well, so let's just call it 18 to 20k damage for his Elemental Burst in this gear. Albedo's normal attacks with the Festering Desire go anywhere from 150 damage to 700 damage, but because of the Solar Isotoma, he hits for an extra 2 to 3k every 2 seconds. Next test is the same artifact, different weapon, this time the Black Sword, the Battle Pass Sword. I have this weapon also at level 80, and it has a base attack of 449, which is slightly less than the Festering Desires 478, but with the Black Sword, there's a 20% increased damage to normal and charge attacks, and as a bonus, crit hits restore a portion of HP. Setting down the Solar Isotoma first charges Albedo's Elemental Burst for me because of his first constellation, as well as gives Bennett extra damage here as well when gathering energy for his own burst, which allows Bennett to deal 3k plus nearly 4k damage upon activation. 3k damage for his own burst damage and almost 4k damage because of Albedo's Solar Isotoma. So here again, the Solar Isotoma being summoned after Bennett's burst puts up 2,400 damage, might as well say 3k, and his initial Tectonic Tide damage is right at 14,000 again, pretty consistent, and this time with more of those Fatal Blossoms granting extra Geo damage, almost another 7k damage on top of the already 14k, so let's call it 21k damage this time. So not much difference here in the burst and skill using the Black Sword. Albedo's normals appear to be about the same damage as the Festering Desire as well. Next weapon up is the Flute. Again, this weapon is level 80 like the others, and it has a base attack similar to that of the Black Sword at 449, but this sword gives an attack boost of 37.7%. Now, just as a quick side note, this weapon is better used on Bennett in this situation in my opinion. More on that very shortly, I promise. But this bonus to attack might be of some help to Albedo because having more attack always ups your damage. Solar Isotoma in Bennett's field with the Flute hits for very nearly 4k damage, which isn't a huge improvement, but it is an improvement to be sure. But the real revelation of the Flute is seen with Albedo's Elemental Burst Tectonic Tide that now hits for a whopping 16,000 on this Ruin Guard, with follow-up Fatal Blossom damage ranging near the 7k realm, so let's call it 7k, making the total damage right around 23 damage using the Flute. A follow-up Tectonic Tide hits for another 12k, still affected by Bennett's boost. So fast is the Elemental Recharge with this gear setup. So that's all three weapons with 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Archaic Petra and the Geo Cup. So now let's take a walk on the side of those who have less time on their hands to grind for Albedo specific gear and try out 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Noblesse, still with that lucky Geo Cup though. Gladiator, as you know, raises attack by 18%, this first test using the Festering Desire. Solar Isotoma hits for about 2k, so you can really see what having no Archaic Petra does for Albedo, and that becomes super clear when seeing his Tectonic Tide hit consistently for 8k. Follow-up Blossoms do make the damage around 10k. Not bad, but not the best, but hey, 10k damage is still 10k damage. Using the Black Sword doesn't see any change, still a consistent 8k damage from Tectonic Tide, 2 tries, however the Flute, with its enhancement to attack score, does manage to hit for an extra 1,000 damage. Switching it up just to see if there is a huge difference, I add that same 2-piece Gladiator to 2-piece Archaic Petra, but again, the damage with Festering Desire is right at 8k on the Tectonic Tide. Using the Flute sees the same upgrade in damage as before by just 1,000 extra damage. Okay, so testing now what most of you might already have lying around will be 2 pieces of the Berserker set, which you know is the crit armor. Berserker grants a plus 12% crit rate, this along with the Black Sword with a further 25.1% crit rate, along with 2 pieces of the Noblesse set with my trusty Geo Cup. But this is what we're going to do differently. We're going to have Bennett be more useful. This is where I said you get a lesson on Bennett. His Fantastic Voyage attack buff scales off of his attack score, so the higher that you make his attack, the more damage you can do after his Elemental Burst, Fantastic Voyage. So we have on him 2 pieces of the Brave and 2 pieces of Gladiator. Brave set 2-piece increases attack by 18%, the same as 2-piece Gladiator, so giving him both 2-piece sets raises his attack considerably. Braveheart set can be farmed in the domain of Gunyan. With this setup, Bennett's Fantastic Voyage hits for 5k plus 2k for Albedo's Isotoma. Let's call it 7k for his burst altogether. Albedo's Isotoma hits for 2k inside the field, which is trash, but 13k for Tectonic Tide is a huge improvement. And just to test if that was a crit or not, I did it again and saw another 13k from the Tectonic Tide. This is largely in part to the attack boost that we gave Bennett using Gladiator and Brave. Now, if you don't have the Gladiator set, it's okay. The Sojourner set also gives an 18% attack boost, and that can be farmed at the Midsummer Courtyard domain. Now, during all this testing, something occurred to me, and it was that I'm missing out on some damage, and this is something that you can try as well if you don't have Bennett, but have a random Catalyst user. I have a weapon called the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, which basically enhances the attack of the next character taking the field by 48%. So, changing up the combo from Bennett into Albedo, it will then go Bennett into Barba with the Thrilling Tales bonus, and then finally into Albedo. The results of this are astonishing. Still using the Black Sword and 2-piece Berserker and 2-piece Noblest build on Albedo that relies on crit, we get a massive 16k Tectonic Tide damage with around 7k follow-up Blossom damage, so let's call it 23,000 damage. And this isn't even using Albedo's best gear. Switching up weapons and giving Albedo the Festering Desire and Bennett the Flute, finally, which, as you know, the Flute raises attack, sees an insane amount of damage increase. Isotoma hitting for 3k and Tectonic Tide smashing for 18k, with follow-up Blossoms falling short on this one with about 3k. Giving Bennett 4-piece Noblest using this setup seemed like a good idea. Noblest 4-piece bonus increases all party members' attack by 20% after an elemental burst, so I wanted to compound the attack bonuses of his Fantastic Voyage with the Noblest bonus on top of Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers to see what Albedo could do with this insane attack boost. On him, I gave him 2 more pieces of the Noblest to boost his own elemental burst damage by 20% and 2-piece Gladiator to further enhance his attack score. This seemed like a good idea, but the result with Tectonic Tide came to be a consistent 10k damage. However, the Fatal Blossom follow-ups seemed to do a bit more damage. Now, one more final test before moving on, putting Albedo back on his standard gear, 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Noblest. I then do the enhanced Bennett Thrilling Tales combo with Bennett using the Flute and Albedo using Festering Desire. Damage here was a consistent 10k. Swapping them around weapons, though, saw a significant improvement, allowing Tectonic Tide to now hit for 13,000 damage. Alright, well, this video was turning out to be a lot longer than I thought it would be, so I'm going to break it up into another part, making this a 3-part Albedo video guide. The next video will cover the right consumables to use for Albedo, as well as his actual main uses for your team, and how to accurately use him in domains, be it solo or co-op with other players. If you have any questions on this portion of the video, please feel free to ask down in the comments, and check out part 1 of this series as well if you missed it. The link to the video will be on the end screen. And after it's made, part 3 will be on the end screen as well. If I was able to help you in any part of this video, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to this channel for more Genshin Impact. I'll see you later.